welcome back. So, I kind of noticed that I was going through, I kind of want to call it like a test or a trial. That's what I want to call it, but it don't got to be that deep, but that's what I want to call it. And what I noticed in it is there would be different people in my life that I would consider as like authoritative figures, that I would, from like a worldly sense, if you're looking at it, based on who they are or their titles are, is someone that I would have to listen to, like if you want to put it that way. And I was noticing my different responses to these people. And one of them, the way I responded was definitely from an emotional or not a fully healed place. And as it was taking place, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, should I be upset with myself with how I responded? Or is the fact that the type of the trigger for it, should I be more so upset in the way that the person triggered the emotion compared to how I responded? So when I was like analyzing the situation, my response was I don't want to say justified, but like it would be a natural response to a predator. So it's like it's that fight or flight type of response. And it's like if you think of it in that situation or in that instance, like that would be a normal response to a predator. So it didn't matter who it was coming from. It was the fact of the intention behind it. So when I was thinking about the situation and how I felt like I kind of harshly answered, but it was just like the answer was warranted because of the spirit that was behind it. So it didn't matter the person that was presented physically for the representation of what the spirit behind it was trying to do. It was looking beyond who the person is and seeing what that spirit behind it was and addressing the spirit accordingly. So it's like that situation where Peter thought he was helping Jesus, telling him he didn't need to go to the cross. And Jesus like lashing out on Peter, telling the spirit in him that was trying to hinder him to get behind him. Like not really directing it towards Peter and even having to say like, get thee behind me, Satan, so that he was directly speaking to the spirit, and I guess in a sense being able to verbalize later if he wanted to that it wasn't really directed towards Peter himself. And that was on a conscious level. So I also noticed there were certain things that were happening subconsciously that I was just like, in the moment of them happening, I was like, I feel like this is like a demonic urge. I don't feel like this would be like a natural urge. Like there's some things that happen naturally and I can tell it's natural because it's like, oh, it's that time of the month. Like this is something that happens around, like to try to put it light and explain it. There are certain times of the month when I naturally would urge chocolate, and it's a strong urge. So it's like, to me, in my mind, that's a response. The thought process automatically goes to, oh, it's about to be that time. Like this is that type of urge that comes around that time. So it was an urge like that, but it wasn't natural because it's not that time. So when it was taking place, I kept saying to myself, like, something about this isn't natural. It has to have some type of demonicness behind it, because the timing isn't natural. So because of that, I would pray in those situations, and I would talk to God, like, in my heart, from a heart posture of really trying to, like, war in the spirit of knowing that subconsciously the human part of me might fail. Like, I might not be strong enough to overcome whatever this demonic influence is. And because of that, like, Lord, hear my heart in the situation, or in the matter of this situation, so that at the end of the day, I'm right with you. Like, as long as we're in good standings beyond whatever points you're trying to prove, just make sure that I'm in the standings of righteousness with you. Like, that's the best way I can say it from a heart posture. If you understand, you understand. If you don't, that's your heart posture. But it was really a prayer from a heart posture. So as I'm reflecting on the aftermath, I look at all of the things that were taking place naturally at the time. And when I was able to think about it, I'm like, oh, okay, there's a lot of, like, demonic festivities, I'm going to say, going on at this time. So this is a part of the things that they do in their realm, and they're trying to bring the spiritual realm or God's children in it to either make a mockery of God or to see how far they can go. And I hate when this happens, because it happens more often than it should. But I'm grateful that God uses it as a way to, like, teach or to help people understand who he is in the process or in the midst of whatever evilness is trying to take place. So there's, like, 3 situations that kind of had me thinking of this kind of matter. So how I was saying how it was like a demonic influence, it kind of made me think of how when the Bible talks about how Judas was going to betray Jesus, like, it kept saying, like, the enemy entered him. And even though Judas was with Jesus that whole time, it's like it was already predestined for him to do what he was going to do, to carry out the plan for what Jesus needed to do. So it doesn't really explain, like, Judas's perspective in the matter. Like, the only time it kind of talks about it is after the act was done and Judas tries to go give the money back. But if you think of it in this type of setting and that type of perspective, it's like you don't know if the spirit inside of Judas that made him want to be around Jesus was warring with what was inevitable. Like, it was already a part of the plan. Like, it had to happen so that Jesus can do what he needed to fulfill. But you can't deny the fact that it was a demonic influence behind it. And how that kind of shows up again is with Job. Like, all those things started taking place to Job because of God allowing the demonic to influence everything that was taking place around Job's life. And that was so that God can prove a point in who he is and who he's designed his children to be. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, Job tried his hardest. Like, even though he didn't know the ending from the beginning, he just knew that he had a relationship with God, and he knew the faithfulness of God. So even going through these things and being justified to feel how he felt in these situations, he still stood on the principles of knowing who God is, but literally had his hedge of protection removed and the enemy able to run amok in his life. So to me, it was just like, dang, God, like, why you have to go in and even try to humble Job even more with like how he responded to him with Job asking him a question, you know? But the difference is with this situation is the Bible kind of goes into a little more detail of how Job was feeling throughout his process of what he was going through at that time. But there's still like a heart posture that is still kind of unspoken, because God felt like he needed to talk to Job in that way for a reason. So it's like that's a part, that intimacy between them, that is something that we're not privileged to see the details behind, but God knew he needed to insert that for a reason, for whoever needs to be talked to like that. Like, I'm going to just put it that way. Because later down the line, we have Jesus, who was going through the same type of demonic temptations, and God's response was not the same. It was, "This is my son with who I'm well pleased." Like, it was a more softer, comforting type of response compared to Job, who kind of, technically, if we're reading it correctly, went through all them trials too and still didn't react in the way that the enemy had expected him to. So when I was thinking about how the Bible was talking about Jesus being tempted, it was still those like demonic urges, like the way that he was talking to Jesus in that time. It was just like, these are fleshly things that he's trying to push on Jesus or urge him to do. But in my mind, it's like Jesus knew the ending from the beginning. So I don't want to say it's like easier to respond the way you need to respond in those situations, because you know who you are and what you're here for. So it's like that spiritual aspect is way too strong to allow the fleshly aspect to overcome. So it's just like how the Bible talks about how the darkness can't overcome the light, because light is light. Like, it don't say it exactly like that, but yeah. But on a different type of thought process, when I was thinking about this as well, I was just like, why would Satan tempt Jesus in a suicidal manner? Like, why would he tell him to throw himself off of, I'm going to say, the cliff to prove that God would save him? And when I kind of went into that thought process, I was thinking of how God does these things to help his children relate to his son. So it's like, when people, there are people that get into those type of mindsets, and it's like, it's not inward, it's that inward battle again, that flesh versus the spirit type of battle. Like, I'm not a person that thinks like that, so I can't say it from a perspective of, in that type of sense. But from someone just thinking about the situation, I'm pretty sure these people don't want to go that far, but something in them or that demonic influence behind those thoughts are causing them to think like that. And it was important for God to show or reference this in his word to help his children to overcome even thoughts that get that deep. Like, to show how much of it being a demonic influence or a demonic thought process behind it, and it's not coming from God to have you think these thoughts or go that far into depression. I'm gonna say it like that. So it's like for every dark aspect of the flesh, God has intervened in a way to show how he can insert himself in the midst of all of that to, I'm going to say, correct you in the thought process of who he is versus who you thought he was, all the way down to comforting you through things that he know that you're just subjected to because you're flesh. So when I kind of reflected on these things, it's like you get like external feedback, and what God was kind of trying to talk to me through these type of situations is like, you don't, even though you might get an external feedback, you don't need that external feedback. Like, what matters is hearkening to his voice or going through with what he intended for you all the way to the end. Like, I want to use the word obedience, because if we go back to like the original point, like I was saying before, there were different situations where it was like an authority type of figure trying to give commands, and then me either subconsciously or consciously following through on the commands. And it was just like, me personally, me and God, we be tussling. I ain't gonna hold you. We really be tussling now, because I'd be like, Lord, why would you allow that? But it's like, to him, it's like, I have to let these people see or understand that you couldn't do that unless I let you. And at that point, that's not, that has nothing to do with me. That's between them and God. Like, Job got a lesson within it, but that was between God and Satan. And it's like, Judas was around that long, but that was between purpose and predestined. So I'm not saying go live however, but I am saying cultivate a relationship well enough with God to know what that foundation is. Like, always knowing God's intention behind it, so that you're not warring with yourself unnecessarily when it could be a test or trial, an example for God's purpose. But you would only know that if you have a relationship with God. And you would consciously or subconsciously know how to respond in them situations because, again, of that relationship that you have with God. And it's like, we have that example. We have an example in his word for a reason, to help you through these situations, because it's not easy. And granted, he's not there to be abused, but it's like, Jesus was literally implemented to be bigger than the program. Like, there's people, you're not bigger than the program. Jesus literally is bigger than the program. That his whole purpose was for God to show you how much they are bigger than the program. So it's like you can get in tune if you want to, but at the end of the day, he gonna continuously show you who he is no matter what. And it's like no matter what angle the enemy is trying to trip you up in, at the end of the day, it's literally God refining you and cultivating his relationship with you deeper. So it's down to your heart posture and what he's convicting you with or of. And that's between you and God. Don't let nobody else try to force what's between them and God on you. But that's all I got for y'all for now. Until next time.